Welcome to the Previously Rockhounding podcast, where we explore the world of rockhounding and lapidary from the ye olden days of the 1970s and 80s through the lens of vintage issues of Rock and Gem magazine. If you're a new listener, the way this works is I read the issue, Sarah reads the issue, we don't discuss it at all, and we come together here on the podcast and share our thoughts on it.
This week is episode 6, in which we're looking at Rock and Gem from March 1976.
What's going on in March 1976?
Well, there was a lot less bicentennial talk than
There was, yeah.
January 1976, which was surprising. I would have thought as we get closer, but I guess not.
I thought it was going to continue, and all year
Yeah.
they're just going to be beating that bicentennial drum. Do you get what I did there, Sarah?
Drum. There was one mention in one ad for a setting to put your bicentennial $1 and $half in for your bolo tie, and they were 76 cents each.
That's convenient because of the year.
That was the only mention, really.
There was an ad that I saw in it that I thought was pretty good, and it was Strike It Rich with Placer Gold. And it was a full-page ad selling a report, like pamphlet, on where to go gold prospecting.
Yeah.
And it was $7.95.
That seems expensive.
It is. When you adjust it for inflation, it's $40.
But with all the gold, you'll be so rich. You'll be like, who cares, $40 book? Make that back and then plenty more.
They definitely were screwing people with that.
I saw that they had a list of states, and one of them, it was like, Colorado, Washington, Oregon, and then it was like Virginia. But
yeah.
Is there gold in Virginia?
Yeah.
But not in other states on the East Coast. Because they didn't
That's
have
a good
any
question.
other. They only had like Virginia.
Okay, so there's still like modern versions of that where they're basically like reprinting like old like maps and selling them for like a profit. So
okay. I don't know. I just never wouldn't. Why I thought it was funny that they were telling you to go get gold in Virginia, but there was no other states.
Yeah, I don't know. It was
around there.
Like,
yeah, that's quite the. If they knew where there was tons of gold where you could strike it rich, would they be selling a guide to striking it rich or striking it rich?
Yeah, stuff like that's definitely sketchy. I have a question for you before we talk about the next ad. So, do you think the value of Thunder eggs today is higher or lower when adjusted for inflation than what they were in 1976?
Lower.
You think they're less valuable?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you would be correct.
Oh.
So there was an ad from Cascade Lapidary in Bend, and they were selling Thunder eggs from Friend Ranch for $1.25 a pound. Okay, that's 1976 dollars, $1.25, which if you were to adjust it today, that'd be $6.25 a pound for Thunder eggs, which that's just kind of crazy. You can buy those Thunder eggs today from Richardson's. They got like all those bins out in their rock yard, $2 a pound. So
that's what I thought. Like the price is pretty low right now. How could it have been lower?
Yeah, I just thought that was interesting that like the price of them has kind of gone down, or at least compared to what they were attempting to sell. I mean, when we go over these things, we really don't know. I mean, who knows? Like, you can sell something for whatever you want, but that doesn't mean that people are buying. I mean, that's the whole thing that's kind of nice with today. Like, we have eBay, and you can look at sold auctions, be like, okay, obviously somebody's trying to sell something for this rate, but nobody's buying. But you don't know when there's just a little printed ad.
I didn't get away with it. There was also an ad featuring a Thunder egg. Ad for Oregon, state of Oregon, which is one of the few ads that wasn't for selling rocks and gems and jewelry stuff. But I mean, they were selling Oregon as a rock hounding destination.
Well, would you like me to read that?
Yeah.
Okay, so this ad, I thought it was really good because it was from the Oregon State Highway Division, which why is the Highway Division like doing promotion?
I didn't notice that. I assumed it's just like the tourism board.
So the top of the ad said an invitation from a thunder egg, and the ad read like this kind of like weird, like it's like a thunder egg talking to you. The thunder egg is inviting you to come to Oregon.
Yeah.
And it which I don't know, sure, why not? It read, I'm waiting for you somewhere in Central Oregon, but I won't tell you where. You'll just have to find me. If you don't like thunder eggs, come and try your luck finding agates on the coast, jasper, and opals in Central Oregon. Or gold and silver in Eastern Oregon. My point is simply that Oregon is a rockhound's paradise. Every year, gem hunters strike it rich here to the tune of $1 million worth of semi-precious stones. So consider yourself invited. I'll be waiting for you. Bet you can't find me. Which, out of all the ads, that's probably the most silly ad. It makes me...
Most of them are very straightforward. There's like, we have rock. Here's what we want. Here's the price. Done. They're not like, ooh, come find me.
What was happening at the Oregon State Highway Division?
They're like, we need more cars on the highways. That's why they didn't say like where. They're like, come find me. Drive all the roads. Drive every highway.
Yeah.
And then they're doing like a car count that summer.
Yeah, I don't know. That one really stood out as being one of the more weird ads up to this point.
Yeah. It's funny what they strike it rich to the tune of $1 million worth of gems.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think you'd ever see something now that says, yeah, they found $1 million worth. Just be like millions of dollars. It could be 1 million. Why say just $1 million?
I mean, if you just think about it for a second, you'll be like, well, how do they eat? How does the highway department there even know?
Yeah.
What are they even basing this
like
off of?
$6 a pound. Thunder eggs get pretty heavy.
Yeah.
$1 million.
Yeah, that's silly, but it was interesting to see like thunder eggs being used as like the lure to get people into the state.
I don't know. I wonder what people's next step would be, because they weren't like right for a guide. I mean, we know that at least now, like BLM in Oregon makes rock hounding maps, and those spots have been around for a long time. But
they have like officially designated rock hounding locations in like a map.
Yeah, so I don't know. They should have tied it in a little better instead of like, come find me. Like, contact this place, or write for details, or something.
Yeah.
But maybe people buy a book. Maybe we'll see some thunder egg information in other issues. There was an ad that just had a list of, it was just one of the very straightforward, like, we have this much a pound, and then there's this much a pound, and it said fire agate peacocks, and I think it said $195 a pound. That's is like a typo, but what else would it? I don't know what a fire agate peacock is.
Was the ad written from the perspective of a peacock? Terrible ad.
I don't know. Like,
I've never heard of a fire agate peacock.
I think the peacock is like the color in the.
So it's like got
like the. But it's like not like at the top. It's like in it.
It's got like a sheen. Is that what they're? Yeah. So I mean, fire agates from Arizona. When they're worked by people, they like grind down to right above that red fire layer. You can get like kind of like a greenish, like bluish hues.
Yeah.
But like I've never heard it described as like a peacock fire agate. But I mean, one thing we've kind of learned through the whole process of reading some of these is that like terminology has shifted and fallen out of favor, and
Yeah, there was another ad that had mentioned something, and I looked it up, and I was like, I don't even know what they could have been talking about. It was for falling star geodes.
Yeah.
And it said it was a hemalite geode, which isn't even hematite, but it definitely said hemalite. And I was like, I didn't find anything on Google for that. I mean, there's like a geode where the inside is just like black. That was the hematite geode, which was very not interesting. So I was like,
I saw that. I have no clue. No clue what they were talking about.
When you like name your stuff in a creative way, people 50, whatever many years later, will never know what you were talking about. So did the people back then know, or they're just like, ooh, falling star, sounds fancy. I'll get one of those. Get my checkbook.
I would like to imagine they were more like aware and not just like, hold on, let me mail a check. But I mean, maybe I'm giving people too much credit.
There was one other thing. I don't think this was like a trade name. I think it was really called It looks like the word taconite, which is the name for low grade iron ore. Taconite.
Okay.
But it's like TACONITE, taconite. I don't know.
That taconite is not something I'm familiar with.
No. Taconite? I don't.
I'm going with
I think
taconite.
that was the real name. I think I could find that. I can find that.
Well, after the podcast, I'm going over to Mindat and looking for taconite. Mm-hmm. And if it's not Thursday, I'm disappointed. Was that all you had for ads?
There's 2 other ads that were continuing the theme of a better way to do cabs, no more dop wax. There's 2 of them. One was like, oh, it's a solid piece of aluminum that grabs your cab, and the other one was, I didn't write down what it was, but they called it a faster and better way to hold a cab to grind, sand, and polish from Cabmaster Tool.
None of it has ever really caught on.
Clearly it hasn't, because here we are.
Yeah, I'm still screwing around with warming up wax. The columns, the glory hole, which is the editor's column, he kind of recapped his thoughts on his adventure in Baja, because in this episode, even on the cover, what does it say? A Rockhound's Guide to Baja, California. Yes. Well, in the previous episode here, I actually bought the book because he mentioned that they were going to be working on a guide to Baja, California, and they kind of adapted some of the articles that they wrote for Rock and Gem magazine, and we bought it. I read it. It's actually up on the website right now. You can go check it out under the library section, currently rockhounding.com, and it's almost identical. Like they just basically used the article that's in here and like his column.
So we're gonna see like a series of articles over the next like 6 months. And he just compiles it into a book.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much. And I mean, it is cool. Like the photos are really good. He also gave some advice, which he gave some advice on using a felt tip marker to write the grit of your grinding wheel on the wheel in case the label comes off. And I'm like, why is that part of this editorial column? Like, hey, just so you know, you can take a marker and write 220 on the side of the wheel. Like, were felt tip markers like a novel invention? They're like, whoa, it writes everywhere.
That's just... Maybe the editor never thought to do it, and he was like, I bet nobody else, a lot of people haven't thought to do this. I should put this out there.
I mean, I'm looking forward to eventually reading some modern Rock and Gem magazine, because I can't imagine they're going to be like, FYI, did you know Sharpies can label things? And it seemed
that things don't change.
It seemed a little low effort. Yeah. And generally we don't talk about like the overall feel of the issue, and we just try to address it point by point. But it kind of felt like this might have been a little more low effort one.
Yeah. I did find some of the articles disappointing. I didn't really find any of the columns very interesting this month. I did notice that I didn't realize before that there's a little on the page with the index. There's a little paragraph about the cover image. Mm-hmm. I didn't realize that. I don't think I've seen that before, but so this cover image was on a postage. It's the rock from the postage stamp.
Did you look up the postage stamps?
Or was it there? There's a picture, wasn't there?
Oh, I was hoping you would have looked up how much they go for.
Oh, how much they go for now? Because I know they were 10 cents.
not the face value, but like if you're like a stamp collector.
No, how much?
I didn't look that up either. I was hoping you did. No. Well, in the frantic fumbler, that was like probably the most rambly one ever.
Was it the continuation of the last column? Am I thinking of the right one? Where they're talking about doing a project and all these forces want to make your project not succeed and you have to overcome it, and they were just like they're like, well, now I really have to finish my project, but oh no, the forces, they don't want me to do it.
Yeah, it was really like, imagine you're working on a project and then you just write a column describing all of the distractions that took you away from that project. You're like, content.
Yeah.
Even the shop talk. Generally, I think the shop talk column is pretty dang good. But it was about the subject of making really small spheres. So like, think about like for earrings, stuff like that. You want to take a little tiny rock and make it into a sphere. So pretty much imagine making a little cup that can mount in a corded drill. I was going to say a cordless drill, but they didn't have them back then. A corded drill, and you spin it and you add grit like you would have like from rock tumbling, and hold it with your finger and grind. Basically, use the little cup as a means of grinding the sphere, kind of like with a bigger sphering machine where there's 2 or 3 cups grinding, but just really like, oh, you can do this and modify like a bolt and make a little DIY sphering thing, which I thought, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah.
And if you do need to work on probably really little stuff, like you want to make earrings or whatever, I'm sure that would work.
Do you use spheres for that? And I assume it's like a flat backed. What kind of earring would it be?
It depends. If it's like something where it's going to be like, think more like bead shaped, where you dangle and you'd see all the way around it, needs to be a little tiny sphere. But I thought that was just kind of interesting. It seems not really applicable to many people, but it does. There's a lot more jewelry stuff going on, it seemed like, in the 70s.
Yeah. I thought this whole issue was a little different from the other ones we read. There wasn't so much like DIY instructional articles.
I disagree. A workshop from Found Things.
No, but
you could follow along.
Normally, they start out with some sort of like article that feels like an ad where they're like, 10 easy steps to do this thing. By the way, this thing was sent to us and the pictures came from the company. They didn't have that. They had this article, A Workshop from Found Things, which on the cover they say, a dream workshop from, quote, found things, unquote. What does that sound like the article's going to be about? A dream workshop from found things.
Well, when I first saw the cover and I saw that, I was actually kind of excited, thinking like, oh, they're going to be like building machines. You're going to like DIY rock tumbler.
Yeah.
Like you're going to be building a shop of things you found, like
workshop from found things.
Yeah,
That's what I thought.
I personally, based upon other things that I've read from the 70s, I was thinking taking apart a washing machine and using the pulleys and the motor and the belts and all that stuff, because that's a thing that people did for, like you basically got a washing machine. And I was like, oh, they found a washing machine and they're going to have an article about it? That's awesome.
Because they do profiles on people who have crazy stuff or make crazy stuff, and I thought that's what this would be. It was not.
Definitely not.
It was about... Did you write down the woman's name? It's about a woman who makes things from...
Alpha Platt.
Oh, yeah, her name was Alpha with an F.
Yeah.
She makes things from found things, including like rocks and stuff, and they described it as whimsical picture creations. And it was about her workshop and her work, kind of, but there wasn't like pictures of her work. They didn't talk about like how she does her work. The article, to me, my takeaway was there was like two paragraphs. It wasn't even a long article.
There was a little tiny picture of some of the stuff that she did where it was like mostly her working on something. And imagine taking a piece of wood and gluing stuff to it. It's very like summer camp art, like
found things,
like
art.
Like take a walnut shell and
oh, that's right, they did show that.
Like glue it to a thing, and you're like art.
So that's, which I guess she used rocks in it.
Yeah.
I mean, mostly it was like she covered this wall with driftwood. She covered this wall with burlap sacks.
Well, so it was mostly about like the decorating of her shop and like how they converted a carport to be her workshop.
How her husband gave up his carport, which was so generous of him for her whimsical creations. He gave up his carport. There was like 2 paragraphs about how nice her husband was to let her have the carport. I don't think I've heard about any wives in any of the other articles about the guys who like make crazy jewelry. They're not like, yeah, his wife has to be seen out in public with him wearing a giant beetle made out of stone around his neck. Whew, poor her, but that's what this guy's into. I don't remember reading that.
Carports are more important.
No.
Yeah, it was a weird article and not what the cover promised.
No. And it wasn't even that rock related.
Yeah, it wasn't really that rock related.
If they want to highlight like what she did with rocks, that'd be relevant to Rock and Gem magazine. They didn't.
It was a little bit of a bummer because like taking a carport and building some janky walls, hanging some burlap sacks, finding some driftwood and hanging those up and having it be like this I don't know, for lack of a better word, like a third world junk room. I'm just kind of like,
certainly isn't worthy of being the first article of the magazine.
No, it wasn't.
Being the first headline on the front. Like, no. Yes, I was extremely disappointed by that in many ways.
Well, there was a couple of good articles. I thought the field trip to Turtle Mountains as the Turtle Mountain Treasures. So the article discusses a range out in the desert in Southern California, out by Needles, California, which that's kind of like, Needles is where California, Arizona, and Nevada kind of like meet right there, like very, very southern Nevada, and all the borders come together, and you can find jasper and agate and carnelian. I like that they say druzy quartz and quartz crystals. Like, I don't know if anybody's really going for like druzy.
Yeah.
I mean, it's more like you pick it up and it's on something and you're like, ooh, pretty. But like I don't think anybody's driving out to the desert. But I
don't know, just one more appealing thing to get you out there.
Yeah, but it's kind of cool. Like they just basically go out and search the washes and stuff, and I guess people still go out there to this day, and they like, search the washes. I mean, part of searching the washes implies that it's getting washed.
Yeah.
And I wonder how that's changed. I mean, during the 70s, it wasn't exactly like super crazy drought, and they would get rains like in their like I don't know if Needles has like a monsoon type season, but like
rainy season.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have water coming down to wash the stuff through the gullies, but yeah, it's just kind of a basic article. Like get out, like they had a little map, and
the map wasn't the greatest map. We've seen a variety of quality of maps.
Yeah.
That one was very hand-drawn, and one of the landmarks was large roses.
Mm-hmm.
They're like, go past the large roses. And you're like, a large rose becomes a nub on the ground in like 2 seconds. Not really ideal for a landmark, but maybe there's just nothing else out there. I don't know. I don't really believe that, but maybe.
Well, even back in 1976, range and township was still the method of map locating, and they could have used that. Yeah. But like that really like gets under my skin, because I still see stuff to this day where like people will describe where they're at. They won't give you a GPS. They won't give you a range and township. They won't tell you, hey, turn left, turn right at this like mile marker or anything like that. They're like, okay, when you see the big white rock, keep going. I'm like, what? Okay, in a world of in an area of all granite, how does one define the big white piece of granite?
What's the big one? Or you're like, is that a medium size? Or is that big size?
Yeah, do we stop here or do we keep going? Yeah, not
so not other than that though, I mean, it's interesting.
There was
I'm starting to think maybe they're based out of Southern California-ish.
Yes,
because we do see a lot of articles in that area.
The editor lives in LA. Mm-hmm. So the editor lived, at least at this time, lived in LA. In his book about going down to Baja, they like mention like, going down from Baja and back up to LA.
Because there's the other article on Southern California rockhounding. Is that a different one or is that the same one?
You're thinking the king of the tourmaline queen.
Maybe.
Well, before we get to the tourmaline, we should talk about everybody's favorite thing, agates. Oregon beach agates. There was an article in here discussing rockhounding on the Oregon coast. And I thought one thing that I thought they mentioned that was pretty neat. They mentioned that the storms on the coast are good for like more material making its way into the ocean. Because even to this day, a lot of people don't realize that the agates don't come from the ocean. Mm-hmm. They come from the rivers. So when you have storms on like the Oregon coast range gets a ton of rain, and those rivers flood, and all of the material gets washed out to sea. But I mean, it doesn't keep going forever. It gets washed back up onto the beaches, and that's where the agates actually come from. So they mentioned that, which, it's funny that
I've never really heard anyone say that, talking about rockhounding on the beach.
Yeah, it's all coming from the rivers. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I thought that was kind of interesting that like they're mentioning that back in '76, and even today people are like, what? Agates come from the rivers and not the ocean? How do they get to the ocean? And you're like, all right, time travel. But it was really more discussing all of the different places on the coast you could buy rocks.
Yeah, it was like a rock shop guide.
Yeah.
They did say like, the beaches can vary by storm and season. So I mean, if they're like, go to this beach, we've been to beaches where we're like, this is great, and then we go back next time, we're like, oh, it's just sand, there's no rock anymore. And you're like, go back next time, and you're like, the rocks are back. Like, so I don't know. Maybe that's why they held off on recommending the specific beaches, and we're just like, go to these shops. There's a lot of shops.
Well, so they also mentioned that the Oregon coast is a great place to get clam chowder. Yes. Now, question. When you read the words clam chowder, in your head, do you say it in a New England accent? Is that how you hear those words in your head?
No.
That's what I do.
No.
I hear a New England accent. If you're out there and listening, and you read clam chowder, is that how you hear it in your head? Because that's how I hear it in my head.
I guess you just haven't really eaten much clam chowder. You haven't been around it in your life to have a non-stereotypical view of it.
But yeah, that was basically it. Like, have a place to go buy rocks on the coast.
Yeah. I didn't find any of them still existing today.
No.
Those rock shops are there really wasn't any. I mean, I didn't look super hard. I kind of zoomed out on Google Maps and I searched rock shop, and I didn't find any rock shops other than like places that would sell like crystals and bones and stuff. Like there was something like that, but there wasn't anything like,
I don't know.
Like this.
Yeah, I don't know of any like rough rock shops that are on the Oregon coast, but I'm sure they're there.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, every area kind of has that thing where, maybe they promote themselves as like a jewelry store, but then like out back there's just piles.
Could be.
Like that's kind of a thing. The King of the Tourmaline Queen is a weird name for an article. But it talks about Dave Wilbur's tourmaline collection from the Tourmaline Queen Mine in Southern California. It's in San Diego County, and I believe it's right across the valley. It's very rugged out there. It's like mountainous. It's right across the valley from the Ocean View Mine, which is what most people would associate with Southern California tourmaline today, I think. But imagine like that stereotypical tourmaline where it's like pink with like the green caps. It's like that like gem grade stuff.
I just think of black tourmaline. So I'm like, this seems a weird thing to collect. Just a little black.
Well, so the black tourmaline schorl is the common stuff that you're going to find all over. The pink gemmy stuff is what people go crazy for. But the Ocean View is a feed egg that you can go visit today. And they have like accommodations, like a little like hotel. You can like camp there and stuff. And that's usually what people think of. I don't think the Tourmaline Queen is active today. But I will say the Mindat listing. Go to Mindat and look up the Tourmaline Queen. It is one of the most thorough, extensive, and impressive listings on Mindat I have seen. And I am a regular user on Mindat.
Put a link to that in the show notes on the website.
Yes, there will be a link on that. Go check out, also the photos. There will be photos of some of this stuff. Currently, rockhounding.com/podcast. There will be photos up with this episode number 6.
And a link to Mindat.
To
the Tourmaline Queen on Mindat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I wonder what happened I wonder if that guy's still around, but it said he had 104 specimens, at least at the time of writing. I wonder what happened to his specimens. If the mine isn't really open anymore, those must have shot up in value.
So,
I mean, they were already pretty valuable. It said he bargained with a museum.
Yeah.
Like a museum. What museum was it?
So some of the tourmaline that was used as like models or whatever for the postage stamps that had tourmaline
were on the cover.
Were in the Smithsonian collection, and then the Smithsonian traded them to a museum in Texas. So their museums will do mineral trades, and then only later were those specimens used as stamps.
But he was like, oh, it was on the stamp, I need it.
Mm-hmm.
And he got it from the museum.
Yeah, he couldn't get the one from the Smithsonian, so he got some of them.
Yeah.
But not all of them. But, it's interesting with collections like this that have like real like provenance to it and they are of somebody well known. It's kind of sad. I've seen a couple of collections from some well-known collectors make it into private hands, and then they just get like sold on like Facebook Marketplace and eBay, and I'm like, I don't know, like, imagine for a second, like, you die, and the widow or whatever is like, hey, you're his friend, like, take the collection, and he's just like, awesome, profit, and like breaks up the collection.
Yeah.
But also I've seen like Rudy Chernich, a lot of his zeolites, I think almost all of his zeolites that he collected are in the Rice Museum. So it can go either way. Hopefully his tourmaline didn't just make it into private hands and are sitting in display cases, and they're kind of something more to that. But 104 is it's an impressive collection. Yeah. Like, some of these like green capped tourmalines like can be 6 digits, right? Like expensive specimens.
I thought it was interesting in this article, and it also is mentioned in another article, that his collection would be on display at the Tucson Gem Show and at the California Federation Show.
Mm-hmm.
They also mentioned in that terrible article about the workshop from Found Things, they said the woman who makes the whimsical picture creations is being called on to exhibit at virtually all the gem and mineral shows in the region. When we go to a gem show, they have the cases made by members. There's never anything like exhibits, really. It's just people selling stuff and cases from members.
Mm-hmm.
There's not like, oh, this guy's got the collection of tourmaline and he goes to this show and then he goes to this show. It's probably different at Tucson, I assume. There's exhibitions, but none of the shows we've been at have had that type of exhibition. We've had some like UV reactive rock exhibit things, but those are really not the same as 104 specimens from a mine being exhibited or somebody's art creations being exhibited.
Yeah,
I wonder if rock shows used to be different.
I feel like they may be a little. They may have changed some, right? Like.
They should bring that back. That would be interesting.
I agree. I think if a club started reaching out to some people to get them to show up with their collection and not just do the 24-inch by 48-inch display case, I think that would be really interesting to be able to see that. I know there's some. I have personally witnessed.
Yeah, you've been to places, to people's residences.
Yeah, I've been to people's houses that have collections that are on par with a museum collection. And in many ways, since we're kind of on the topic a little bit, in the world of rocks and minerals, people's home collections often beat what you can see publicly in a museum because museums have no money. They are basically dependent on donation. And are you going to donate something that's $10, $20, $100,000? Maybe if you are filthy rich and you need that level of tax write-off. But otherwise, no, you're keeping those things. So I've seen some impressive things.
Yeah. So. Yes, it'd be cool if they brought that idea back, but also I wondered, how did that work? Because if he's like, here's my best specimens, I had to trade a museum for this. He's not just like, just put it in a case and like whatever. Like, is he like there, like making sure nobody like steals it?
Yeah.
He just stands there the whole show. Maybe I don't know. So somebody's got to be watching it.
Yeah, I mean, if you're like bringing that level of stuff, like I don't know, I'm standing there with a pump shotgun watching my $100,000 rock
life collection.
But yeah, overall it was interesting. Yeah. I think having articles talking about people's kind of extensive collections is something I hope to see maybe more of in some of the future issues.
Yeah.
There was, of course, another amazing, top-notch article, Gifts from Your Tumblr, Part 2, from everybody's favorite author, Dixie Douglas.
Should we just treat her articles as columns? Because she has like an article in every single one. This one, I didn't see an ad for her rock shop near the article, so at least there's that. And I mean, she's talking about gifts from your Tumblr. So part 1, she just was like basically describing how to tumble rocks. Now she's telling you what you can make with them. And there's like a little paragraph for each thing on like how to do it. Basically, it's like glue the rock to another thing. But her ideas were buy a little Christmas tree and make ornaments out of the little rocks you've tumbled. Cufflinks.
That's not the Christmas tree thing is not a bad idea.
I do think that was a good idea, like a mini tree, like a mini fake one.
Yeah, like a desk tree.
I do think that's actually not a bad idea. Cufflinks, desk pen, like the thing you set your pen on, like your old-timey not pen. Earrings, critters, which you just put a googly eye on the rock. That's your critter. But she called them wiggly eyes. Keychains, pendants, bales, which I didn't really understand what even that was. Just etc.
Calling on all lapidary artists that might be listening to this podcast right now, do you consider attaching googly eyes to any of your rocks and calling it art?
Would you give that as a gift? I don't know.
I don't know what year the pet rock came out, but like we're certainly like in that realm. We're in that
pet
era.
Rock didn't even have eyes though, did it? Is it just a rock?
That's a good question. Now I'm questioning my knowledge of the pet rock.
Yeah, most of the stuff was like glue a rock to a thing, but the tree was a good idea.
Yeah, take a rock, glue it to a thing, and call it done. Yeah. That's basically her advice.
I guess, I mean, it's good to have a variety of skill levels included in your target audience.
No, I disagree.
Because some of it's...
People look at like a thing like Rock and Gem magazine for how-tos, inspirational content, and to like advance your knowledge of things. If before this you didn't realize glue can adhere a rock to a thing, I don't know. Like that's my take on it. Like, could it be somewhere else, right? Could it be like, could Dixie Douglas have had like a column like
maybe she could
rock projects for kids?
Yeah.
But like no kids were buying Rock and Gem magazine. Like
maybe she just could have framed it as like gifts to make with your kids.
Sure.
Or something. Yeah. What else does she have up her sleeve? What will we find next?
I believe there might be a part 3 coming.
Oh, really?
That was disappointing.
What could the part 3 be? Like how to wrap it and literally give it, like hand it from your hand to their hand?
You're going to have to stay tuned for Previously Rockhounding number 7. There was a full article, The Rockhound's Guide to Baja, which we've already kind of talked about because they mentioned it in the editor's column, and I now have the book. The book is actually pretty good. Not from the perspective of using it as a modern guidebook, but just like it's like a trip report. It's like their story of this epic trip driving down to Baja and going rockhounding. So
I mean, they say it was really not a explored area by rockhounds.
Yeah,
so they had a lot of new, not discoveries, but they're just going into unknown territory.
Yeah, which I mean, I think is it's still like that somewhat to this day. Like they're not, nobody is really cruising around Baja, like going prospecting, looking for new stuff.
Yeah.
But the book is pretty good. Like I would recommend it. I mean, I found it on eBay for, I mean, $1.95 or $2.95 or something, is basically what they originally sold it for.
I don't know, you get like, if 3 people go buy that book, everybody else is going to be having a hard time because the pricing bots are going to be like, wait, people want to buy this book? Pump the price up.
Yeah, that is certainly a thing that I've noticed from when I've recommended books. Like the prices will go up. That's why I'll never say what I'm looking for
till after you bought it.
Until after I've got it. Yeah, it was pretty good though. Like it seemed like they just packed in the miles on that trip. Like 1,200 miles, doing that in like 5 days down.
Yeah.
And that's not like, it's not like getting on the freeway and doing 1,200 miles. It's like gravel roads in a VW bus. Yeah. But like the article and the book have such like amazing photos of their trip, and I don't know, I thought that was more interesting than anything, I guess.
I liked that on their map they showed what was a dirt road and what was a paved road. I don't really see that on maps now.
Yeah.
Which is helpful information to have.
You can use, depending on the land management, like national forest maps, they have a road rating on their official maps, so you can see like the quality of the road. But typically, like rockhounding maps and stuff, no, people are just like, whatever, it's a thing.
Even like Google Maps, I don't understand.
Yeah.
Why? We've like taken so many like gravel roads. We're like, I guess this will get us there, but I also, they mentioned in that article they're in some city, and there's a place or people selling selenite clusters, and they're like, oh, they wanted $350 for this cluster, and we were like, no, we'll only take it for $3, and then they're like, oh, this was easily worth $75. And like, you haggled like 50 cents down when it's worth so much more. I guess why pay 50 cents that you don't have to, but they're like, we're definitely ripping them off. This is worth so much. But let's get our 50 cents. I don't know. I guess I just don't like haggling. That's what you do in Mexico, right? I don't know.
How often have you been in Mexico and witnessed haggling? Or is this just a thing you think happens?
I think I've seen it. I don't know. I haven't spent much time in Mexico.
I have spent a decent amount of time in Mexico, and there's certainly a price for locals and a price for non-locals. So trying to split that difference.
There's a price for bringing it back to LA and selling it at a show.
Yeah.
Well, not too much left here. The next article was very long. It was called...
You're skipping one. You're skipping the tuning a carbide wheel, which is something that
Let's do that
there's not a whole lot to talk about.
I didn't write it down.
Yeah, so typically today on cab machines, lapidary stuff, people are using stuff like Nova wheels, and it's like diamond impregnated wheels that are just good, but dial back the clock a little bit, and people are doing all of their stonework with silicon carbide wheels, similar to what you would have on like a benchtop grinder, and they need dressing. So as you push a stone into it, it'll dish, right? And to make it flat, you dress it. And it was a whole article, which is a total waste of space, on dressing these wheels.
I guess basically, I didn't understand it.
Yeah, take a carbide dressing tool and you press it into the wheel and you're done.
Oh.
It was just that. So should have not have been an article. Maybe next time they should do an article on felt tip marker selection for the labeling process. But we'll get into the Brazil 76 article, I guess.
Well, they did. I mean, there was that article. Let's skip ahead again. That one where I pushed the stick into the blade. That's like the article on hammer heavy bezels, which it was like put the stone in the middle of the plate thing you wanted it and hammer the metal around it. Don't hit the stone. And that was the whole article.
Yeah.
They're just like, hammer it so the stone is held in by the metal.
So, yeah, a bezel is like a ring.
Yeah.
And you'd put like a cab in it and roll over the edge of the bezel so it holds the cab in place. And they're just like a whole article about hammering the bezel over but not screwing up.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit of a stretch.
It was. Well, they had to keep those short to make space for Brazil 1976, which it was really long and I didn't really take note of much because it was a little boring.
It was definitely a technical article, and so there's a lot of amazing pegmatites that come out of Brazil, and they kind of talked about some of the fluctuation with this market of like boom and bust, where miners go out to these like mining districts and basically get a whole bunch of stuff and then try to sell it all. And the market was getting flooded with some like amazing stuff. There's going to be photos up from the article, and that. And then the market would dry up and nobody could get the stuff. And then it hit some big pockets, and it was not. There's a lot of talk of the different zones and different like materials coming out of what zones of these like pegmatite areas, but it was a little bit like the iron.
Just went on and it never ended.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, I mean,
as somebody that doesn't know a whole lot about Brazilian pegmatites,
yeah,
it was a little much, a little even too technical for. I think I fall in the middle. I'm definitely not like the expert in anything, and it's also not my first time talking about rocks, but for me it was a little bit much.
I did like in that article, I did note that they mentioned they would use like insects and animals that burrow into the ground, and they would look at what those like animals and insects push out of the ground to be like, oh, they pushed out something here, start digging.
Yeah.
I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, well, if you're looking for like clay pockets that would have crystal growth, if there's like a giant anthill and they're pulled out a bunch of clay, dig up the anthill. Maybe they're near crystals.
Yeah.
Don't actually go and do that, like you, the listener.
No.
Leave the ants alone.
Yeah. Do you have how many more? I only have one more article.
I have one more article, and that's the lapidary cleanup.
Yes.
And it's an article discussing the issues of cleaning up the oily mess from cutting rocks, and some of the different things he suggested.
And he's like, I have this problem, and I'm trying to figure out the best solution, so I'm asking everybody, and everyone just tells him water. And he goes different places, like places cutting rocks and selling them. And he's like, how are you getting the oil off? And there's like, water. And he's like, well, he looks at the rocks and he's like, it's good enough. If you're a rock shop and you're selling cut rocks to tourists, nobody's going to like hold that rock up to their eyeball and look for like a sheen of oil. So like, it's good enough. But he's like, how do you do it? What do you do? And, it's like, same now. He's like, cat litter, sawdust, Tide detergent. But his final conclusion is 1/3 detergent, 1/3 Clorox, which just means bleach, and 1/3 is water. That's it. That's the conclusion of the article. He's like, it's good. It's the best I can find. It's still not perfect, and also like, doesn't it seems like it would like maybe like putting your rock in 1/3 bleach seems.
Yeah, I don't know about the damaging part, but that's all bad advice. Kitty litter is the way to go. You take your oily rock and you put it in cat litter, preferably cat litter that sucks and it's a little dusty, like not the stuff you'd want for your actual cats. And you need time, and it will absorb all of the oil out of the rock, and then you can wash the cat litter off. The cat litter is just bentonite clay, and that's the best way. The problem with using water is you're never going to lift every little bit of oil out of it, and you don't want to transfer the oil to like your polishing equipment and all of that. I don't know of a super fast way to try to like get the oil off. Yeah, but the problem with the water is it doesn't get in everywhere. And then if you're using like a tub to try to do it, the oil that comes off floats to the top of the water, and then it gets on your hands. And then as you lift that rock out, you're pulling it through an oil sheen. Like,
I assume they had running water because they always said hot water and a brush. Mm-hmm. I imagine like a faucet running hot water.
Cat litter in time. Cat litter in time.
It seems annoying to brush off oil. I was like, that doesn't even really seem like it would work very well.
I think you can use like a natural brush, like a horsehair brush. Yeah, okay. But then now you have an oily brush. I know, you have an oily brush. Well, I think that about does it for this episode of the Previously Rockhounding podcast. On the next episode, we're going to be looking at Rock and Gem magazine from April 1976. 1976 Rockhound and Lapidary Guidebook. So, in this one, we have...
It looks very different from all the other episodes.
Yeah, the cover is very different.
What's new in jewelry making? Latest techniques, equipment, accessories. Lapidary of the year, which I guess they do lapidary of the month. We never talked about it. How to set up your own lapidary workshop. 4th edition, new mineral finds. #1 rock trail in the USA. Mat making, miniatures, tumbling.
And much, much more. I added that. The map making sounds interesting. This one is...
It's much bigger.
We are significantly thicker in size.
We'll see why they chose, what did you say, April?
Yeah.
April to be the guidebook for 1976.
Well, thank you all for listening. Stay tuned.